Hi everyone. Our subject today is a very good one indeed, and it is about God and the quest of the truth. Now, throughout history and across human cultures, we can see that human beings have raised and attempted to answer great questions about life and death, suffering and evil, love and happiness in life, but how to get to the truth? That was the puzzle. We begin to question when we are small children, and as we grow, we learn of philosophy, which traces the road and leads to the truth. The great religions of the world address these questions and offer answers. Philosophy raises these questions and attempts to offer answers using resources of human intelligence and religion in the same time, indicating ways in which that the answers that a religion offers to the great questions of life are more comprehensive, complete, and satisfying than those that philosophy alone can offer. In our life, we take time out from a busy life to reflect on life and its activities, to review and better our actions, and often we do this in group of friends and family, etc. As well, the world of academic philosophy and the history of philosophy can be understood as the work of a community of human persons who pursue the great questions. It's a collective thing. But often enough, philosophers arrive at very meager results and go into trivial fascination of common sense to jump from one chain to another, as there is no exit. But for to choose none is still to choose. Yes, philosophy helps. Clearly, truth is a vital issue. It immediately opens out on the ethical, on questions of the good and bad, right and wrong, and how we should live as human persons. If that is true for one, may not be what is true for one, may not be true for another, or someone else. This in general is claiming to know what is true. Yet the truth or objective truth is completely something else, that we may not get to it at all. Therefore, some say to think that there is something like God who is beyond this world of sensations, who communicates truth to us, is to be involved in an illusion, because to them, knowing is seeing. In logic, there is a principle of non-contradiction, meaning that something cannot be both true and false at the same time. And here are two essential elements are involved: consciousness and intentionality, precisely about something morally as related to our subject, relying on experience, understanding, and judgment. Our level of experience depends on our five senses, but our level of understanding is characterized by mental activities like questioning, imagining, having insights, hypothesizing, and theorizing. This is called intelligence with the right concept. Our level of judgment is self-driven to move from data of sensation to understanding to checking out whether our understanding gets really to the truth. And in this case, and after this, it is time then for the verdict. I mean, after to deliver the judgment, our judgment, we have to, get to the verdict, which means objective reality. One of the best examples that illustrates and personifies the process of reaching the right decision of seeing the truth is surely the example of the prophet Abraham. In his quest and search for the Creator, he approached his Lord with a sound and clean heart. He started in his early manhood, and he was mature and rational to initiate his methodology in his quest when he objected after observing how his people worship idols they make and mold with their own hands, and he realized they worship fake gods, and he reproached them lack of reason and common sense, and lack of common sense, that is, because they, which means the idols, can't do his people good or harm, can't even talk or listen, etc. So he decided to destroy them, except one of them, the biggest one, to prove to his people that these idols are helpless and worthless. When his people found out, they were told that Abraham did this, but when asked who did that in public, who did that to our gods, Abraham said, this one, pointing to the biggest idol, remember? The one he saved. At this moment, they knew he mocked them and outsmarted them in debates attended by all, and proved them wrong because God Creator is none of these man-made, not even any star, moon, or sun, since they disappear, meaning they are subjected to some might of which he is convinced to be that might to be the God Creator. He did this, reaching the truth of existence of the all-powerful Almighty through his reasoning, using knowledge he acquired mathematically and logically, as we can see and understand, step by step. The next verses telling the story of Abraham finding his God, God of the universe in the following verses. Well, I'll be citing many verses which put together and gathered from different surahs of the Quran, making up the story of Abraham, which I'm trying to expose here. Now, I'm going to read those verses, and afterwards, I'm going to explain them to catch how did Abraham reach the truth and identified the Creator. Now, those verses are number 70 to 77 of Surah 26. I'm going to read them, and I have other verses I'm going to cite later on. Now, these verses goes like this. God is talking to Muhammad, telling him, and rehearse to them, which means tell your people, tell whoever, Abraham's story. Behold, he said to his father, the story of Abraham, tell him the story which goes like this. When he told his father and people, what do you worship? They said, we worship idols constantly. So they told him bluntly, we worship idols constantly. He said, do they hear you? Or do you good or harm? They said, nay, but we found our fathers doing so. Which means blindly and stupidly and dumb, like dumbs and dummies. And this, they were worshiping the same thing that their fathers were worshiping without asking any question, without reasoning, without anything. So this is what Abraham discovered that his father and his people are doing. Now, other verses, which are number 57, 58, 59, 62, 63, 65, and 66 of Surah 21. Surah 21. Yeah. Which says, it starts like this, and by Allah. Now, Abraham is talking. And by Allah, I have a plan for your idols. He's telling them, there was some kind of challenge and facing and discussion and dialogue and blah, 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 he and his people. He telling them, and by Allah, I have a plan for your idol. After you turn your backs, so he broke them. That's the plan. He wanted to destroy those idols. He destroyed them to pieces, except the biggest of them, as the first verse explained, that they might turn to it, which means he plays there, he goes down to their stupidness, so they think maybe this one has destroyed the other. They said, who done this to our gods? Did you do this, O Abraham? He said, nay, this was done by their biggest one, as we said. Ask them if they can speak. Well, so ask them if they can speak. They were confused, of course, with shame. And Abraham said, do you then worship things that can neither be good to you nor do you harm? It's like a smart questioning or smart answer in what you're telling them. Why then you do worship things that they don't do you good or harm? Anyway, more verses, number 74 to 79 in Surah 6. Abraham said to his father, you took idols for gods? like blaming his father. You took idols for God? I mean, you're more intelligent than that, or you should do better than that, etc. I see you and your people in manifest error, which is something wrong. So we showed Abraham the kingdom of the heavens. Now God is talking. So we showed Abraham, which means with his intelligence and mind and consciousness and all this, Abraham saw things that they did not, his father and his people, they did not see. We showed him the kingdom of the heaven and earth, that he might have certitude. We let him see it with his mind and heart, so he will get to the truth. So he will be convinced, that is. How, explaining to us, the verses are explaining to us, when the night covered him over, when the night fall, he saw a star, in the light, one star light illuminate in the sky. He said, Abraham said, "Oh, this is my Lord." But, after a while, the star disappeared. But when it set, he said, when the star disappeared, that is, I love not what set. I mean, this cannot be something real in the sense. Afterwards, the verse said, when he saw the moon in splendor, the moon is bright and this, he said, "This is my Lord." But when the moon set, he said, "Unless my Lord guide me, I shall be among those who go astray." Again, the moon appears in the night and disappears when the sun goes up and stuff like this. So he spent time observing and seeing and discussing with his people and telling them, "Oh, this is it. No, it's not him. It's not the moon, because the moon again disappeared." But here he put the big question, saying that he reached the end of the test, that he should be guided by his Lord. Otherwise, he will be like his father and his people. When he saw the sun, but when the moon disappears, meaning that the sun started to rising, when he saw the sun rising, this is what the verse keep saying, he said, "Oh, this is it. This is bigger." But when the sun set, at the end of the day, that is, he said, "Oh, my people, I am free from your giving partners to Allah. I'm innocent from what you believe in. I'm innocent from the position that you took, worshipping idols next or beside to Allah," which means it's something that the mind cannot accept, that the reason would refuse, and so on. "For me," and he told them, "for me, I have set my face toward him who created the heavens and earth, and am not of the associators." He said, all these are fake, whether the star, the sun, the moon, your idols and everything, which means he took long time discussing and showing and proving and attending with his father and his people to get to this point, saying, all this is fake. What you worship, and as I said, the star or the moon or the sun, there must be the one who created those things, who made them appear and disappear and have that cycle here and there all over. It must be, there must be a criteria, and I'm not one of you who associate these things and other with the real creator. Finally, in the next, let's say, step or chapter, or in another step or chapter, while confronting Nimrod, their king, Abraham confronted the king Nimrod in verse number 258 of Surah 2. He said, the verse said, "Have you seen the one who disputed with Abraham?" That is, God is talking to Muhammad, of course. Did you see the one who disputed with Abraham? Allah granted him power. That king, which Allah, that is, granted him power, made him a king in the sense. Abraham said to that king, in kind of a challenge or dialogue or thing, said, "My Lord is he who gives life and death," which means he creates and he causes death. Nimrod said, that is, the king said, "I give life and death." Why did he say that? Because as a king, he can order one to be killed or let him live. In this kind of reasoning, he said, "I give life and death." So Abraham told him, "Allah causes the sun to rise from the east." Okay. Can you cause it to rise from the west? I mean, it's an instant and very intelligent, spontaneous, kind of question as an alibi. So the king, or he was confused and this guy didn't know what to say. He just got blunt and confused. Okay, the verses end, and the subject, is covered enough, but I want to resume the means that Abraham used. So, Abraham went out in search for the creator of this universe, okay? Because, in his mind, he started thinking and seeing, why is this, why is that, who and he, etc. Like we all do that, questioning. So he faced his father and his people who were worshipping idols. And he wanted to prove to them that those idols are fake because they can do no good and no harm. They don't hear, they don't talk, etc. So in the quest of searching for the truth, for the creator, he then opened a discussion with his father and his people, like, what about if this star is God instead of those idols, because it's heavenly, positioned and all this. But then the star disappeared, which is something that cannot be authentic of the real star to be, let's say, God. Same thing, the moon. So he spent time with them, the star, and then turned to the moon, the star and the moon, when the morning comes, they fade. At that moment, the sun rises. So he said, maybe this is it, the sun, because it's bigger. And then at the end of the day, the sun set. So all this was proven to him in his mind and his way of reasoning that all this is fake. There must be something beyond, which is the one who created those things who sustain them, who control them, who put them here and there and put them in that cycle and so on. There must be this one is the God. And he denied completely. He refused completely what his father and his people say, proving to them that they are fake and that the truth is there is something bigger, which is almighty, which is all powerful, and so on. And in his mind, he realized that this should be the real God and the truth and the Creator, the one and only. Thank you.